I don't know.
And by that I mean thank you for considering being in the show.
I already stupidly said yes, so I'm
Heidi's a
stuck.
yes. Yeah, Andrew I think is a solid, solid.
Solid maybe.
All right, we are live. So welcome to the March 5th, 2025 Litchfield School Board meeting. I got a cough all of a sudden. We will call the meeting to order and begin with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are joined tonight by a special rabbit in place of Mr. Shoemaker. I am expecting Mr. Shoemaker to join us this evening, so we'll start with the meeting with 4 individuals. Tonight is a special meeting. We are honoring Ms. Tina Harrison tonight with a special ceremony, so we'll go through the first few actions of the agenda and then go into a recognition for Ms. Harrison.
Thank you.
So where are we? Review and revision of the agenda. Any changes to tonight's agenda?
Nope.
All right, consent agenda. Any board members like to move anything off consent tonight?
No, thank you.
All right, summary of non-public actions from February 19th, 2025. Mr. Plansky moved to adjourn the public session at 8:56 p.m. Mr. Shoemaker seconded that motion, and that motion passed 5-0-0. And we'll move right into presentations and recognitions. So, recognition of Ms. Tina Harrison. So, I just wanted to kick off and say, Ms. Harrison's been a strong advocate for students, faculty, and staff. Certainly, Ms. Harrison helped lead the effort in bringing full-day kindergarten to our district, was certainly a strong believer and advocate for the arts over many years. And has been a strong voice in the need to improve our facilities conditions. You were certainly an advocate for cultivating a love of learning, improving curriculum, and you left certainly a lasting impact on our district over the last 9 years or so. I cordially invited several members of the team, and I'd like to invite some members up to say some words if you'd like. Yeah, please.
Hi, everybody. Jim Norton, Woodhawk Way. I just want to thank Tina for everything. I think it's 9 years you've been on the board now, and just the way you've taken care of our kids, the way you've taken care of our faculty and our buildings, and it's got big shoes to fill. Next people coming in, but thank you for everything, and we'll miss you a lot, so thank you.
Thank you.
Ready to say my name? Tiffany McKinnon.
And a bunny.
Tina, you're just amazing. As a friend, a school board member, you give your all. So thank you.
Welcome.
Oh, Tiffany's gonna cry.
Hello, Nate Lammy, Manchester resident. Tina, you've been an incredible member of the Performing Arts Department. I am a musician primarily. I am not an actor. I'm not a director. And with your help, I have become some of those things. So it's really incredible the amount of work you put in to benefit students who you are like our students. It's just an incredible amount of work and like partnership. Whenever I need to worry about something, you've already figured it out. Whenever I need help with something, you already have a plan. And I couldn't be as effective as a teacher in the Performing Arts Department without you being my second-hand woman. So thank you.
Hi. I just want to thank you for keeping students at the center of all your decisions for 9 years. My children have benefited, your children have benefited, all our children have benefited from you making decisions with them at the core. And thank you for bringing an educator, teacher perspective, educating board members who do not have an educational background over the years with all our crazy acronyms that nobody else understands, and helping them understand pedagogy and curriculum decisions that they may not have understood without your perspective shared to the board. and I am glad to get you back for more free time.
Hi, Corey Solzin. I'll be speaking as the LEA president today. I didn't plan on speaking, but as president of the LEA, thank you so much, Tina, for all of your advocacy for teachers at our buildings. Like I heard, there's big shoes to fill, and I agree with that statement. So thank you for all of your service, and please don't disappear from our schools. We want you still, and thank you, and enjoy some of your time back. You deserve it. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I will absolutely miss this role. It's been, family, work, and school board has been a third of my life for the last 9 years. So it's going to be hard to kind of take a step back. I don't know what I'm going to do with all my free time. Janine seems to have plans. But I feel good about stepping back at this point in time. I think we have a strong board. We have strong leadership. Our staff is incredible. And I think as long as we continue to do what's best for our kids, then we'll be moving in the right direction. So thank you all for, the recognition, and I appreciate all of you. So thank you.
Thank you again.
Tina, don't forget, we have 2 public input sessions every meeting, so you can still come.
I have a pitchfork and I have a tiki torch.
Noted. All right, moving on with tonight's agenda, there's also recognition of GMS custodial staff, and specifically I wanted to take a moment and recognize Mr. Zachary Blanger, Mr. David Ross, Bobby Joe Weisenberger, and Michael Harding for truly above and beyond efforts the night of Winterfest. There was some significant plumbing issues that popped up, we'll say, that night due to some backed up plumbing in the main lines, and these individuals, our custodial staff, truly went way above and beyond the call of duty that evening.
Duty.
No pun intended.
Slightly intended.
Yeah, slightly intended. To clean up the mess, so to speak, and the extra hours put in to ensure that school could open the Friday before vacation, and working the late hours to make sure that building was operational was truly amazing. So I wanted to make sure that those individuals were called out, and certainly a thank you to not only Mr. Mitchell and the superintendent for their help and support to make sure that happened as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
No, I echo that. That was a very stressful evening. Obviously, Winterfest was a great evening for the kids and the staff, and to close out the evening with that is not ideal. But yeah, the custodial staff worked their tails off that evening to get everything clean, to get the issue solved. Dave came in. I think he put in probably a 20-hour day that day because he started with plumbing issues in the morning and ended with them in the evening. Thank goodness they were able to do that, and we were able to open school, with no issues the next day. So kudos to all of them.
So certainly a plug for supporting our LSSA staff, certainly for next Tuesday. Definitely want to make sure we recognize all their hard work every day. So thank you for that. Next up on our agenda tonight is our student representative report. So welcome.
Hi.
How's everything going? How was your vacation?
It was really good.
Good?
Lots of skiing, yeah.
Oh, cool. Awesome. I think we're just loading up the report here. All right, winter sports.
So most of this on here is just old news. Boys basketball lost in the quarterfinal playoff game against St. Thomas Saints. Girls basketball ended their season being 4-13. Boys hockey ended their season being 7-10-1. And winter track, their season ended with Bridget Hidalgo placing 6th in shot put and Callie Duncan placing 6th in the 3,000 meter. Wrestling, this is new. Logan Allaire won his 4th consecutive D3 state championship. Sage Ankle got a second. Logan Ankle won his 4th consecutive D3 state championship. Sage Ankle placed second, and Sam Baker placed 3rd for the weight classes, and the whole team ended up finishing 8th.
Some of the past activities we had right before break was the winter carnival. That went over very well. The whole school got involved. It was a really fun day. And then over break, Campbell Chorus and concert band went and performed at Universal Studios.
And not as exciting as, GMS or LMS, but we have the robotics competition on the 3rd and the 8th coming up.
Some of the future things we have going on is next Tuesday we don't have school because of a teacher workshop. And then the next day we'll have a district band concert, and then the day after that we'll have a district chorus concert. And then a little while after that, on the 17th, Campbell's mathletes are going to compete at the state contest at NHGI.
And this is just like a little recap of what's going on at the high school. We're midway through quarter 3, and teachers are continuing working on designing, engaging, hands-on learning experiences for students that allows them to learn skills and competencies and then apply these lessons to real-world situations. And at the same time, students are utilizing digital portfolios to self-assess themselves as learners, using the work study practices to reflect on who they are as learners overall.
On the 21st, LMS hosted its first ever Wellness Day. It was an event designed to promote self-care and healthy choices. Students attended 7 workshops throughout the day, creating their own schedule, picking from over 40 different workshop options. Some of the options were crime scene processing, fitness boot camp, guided relaxation, dodgeball, jewelry making, learning and music therapy dogs, and so much more. Students were required to sign up for at least one personal health workshop to reflect and build upon their current skills such as science of sleep, stress and anxiety, outdoor survival, mindfulness, nutrition, and how to practice dignity. At the end of the day, the students performed a form to get feedback, and they rated it a 4.2 stars out of 5.
High praise for middle schoolers.
Yeah.
I went to that event. It was amazing. The kids did awesome. Everybody was having a really good time. It was a very well-run event. And they're putting together a video slideshow that we'll share next time. It was great.
And then at Griffin, they had an amazing Winterfest on the 20th. Over 250 people came out for pizza, games, cardio drumming, story time, chili cook-off, face painting, and a bonfire. Congratulations to Miss LaPlante's class for winning the snowman contest. And, I don't know how to say the name, Labrie family won the chili cook-off. So congrats if you're watching.
Awesome. Another very fun event. I found my lost calling of cardio drumming.
I heard it. Yes.
It was great fun.
I've never done anything like that, but I'd probably do the chili cook-off, maybe?
Cool. All right, thank you for the update.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate it. All right, next up on the agenda tonight is moving into community comment. This is our first of 2 community comments. Anyone care to address the board tonight? All right, I'll close community comment. There's a second round. You have still an opportunity. It's all good. We'll shift gears into correspondence.
Yes, on February 20th, Peter Plansky emailed the board with a question about the freezer replacement and solar switch date, and there were responses from Mr. Cutter, Mr. Plansky, and Mr. O'Connell. On February 20th, Anna Marati emailed the board circulating the credit card manifest. There was a question from Mr. Plansky regarding a Celtics game purchase, and then a response from Anne to that question. On February 20th, the superintendent emailed the GMS community regarding significant plumbing issues at GMS that could impact school the next day. On February 20th, Dan DeWitt emailed the board clarifying that if he is elected to school board, he would step down as citizens co-chair of the FIC. And if appointed to the FIC as a school board member, he understands that he is representing the board, which may differ from his personal opinions. On February 20th, the superintendent emailed the GMS community quite late, I think it was like 11:59, that the plumbing issue was resolved, yeah. And that school would happen as scheduled the next day. On February 21st, Mr. Cutter emailed the custodians and facilities, thanking them for going above and beyond to clean up the mess from the plumbing issues. And then also on February 21st, Mr. Cutter emailed the GMS staff on behalf of the board, thanking them for their contributions to the Winterfest and helping to make it a huge success. On February 21st, the superintendent emailed the board, again, updating us on what the issues were with the plumbing and how those were being addressed. On February 22nd, Jan Sullivan emailed the board circulating draft public and non-public minutes from the February 19th meeting. On February 25th, Anna Marati emailed the board circulating the payroll manifest, specifically regarding dues and 403B contributions. On February 28th, Anna Moratti emailed the board circulating the accounts payable manifest. On February 28th, Renee Burgess emailed the board circulating the draft March 5th, 2025 agenda. And on March 4th, I emailed the board circulating a summary of superintendent evaluation. And that brings us to date.
Thank you as always. Next up on the agenda is superintendent's report, and we'll kick off with enrollment.
Yeah, so same report as last time, just because of where we are in our meeting schedule. We'll have new numbers next week for March and stuff, but again, pretty steady throughout the entire school year. A little bit up, a little bit down, depending on a particular month. Nothing too significant change-wise. So
Okay. And has enrollment started for?
later this month, we'll start
Later this
doing
month,
kindergarten.
okay.
Yeah, yep. It's on our admin agenda to discuss tomorrow morning. So.
Got it. Liberty Gas.
So over the school vacation, everyone else still works and does stuff. So the town invited me over to a meeting that the town officials were having with Liberty Gas about a kind of a gas main that's going to be coming through the town of Litchfield from Manchester, Londonderry through Litchfield to Merrimack, the station over there. So I have like a copy of the plans if anyone wants to review it. Why I wanted to bring it to the board's attention tonight is because this main line is going to be coming like right through, not well, somewhat through, but it's going to be coming right along the elementary school because this piping is going to come mainly through, run along Charles Bancroft Highway all through town. So that's something that we'll just need to be conscious of. Talking to the representatives from Liberty Gas last week, we talked about how, ideally our work would occur during the summer near our facilities, so it doesn't interrupt, our traffic and our flow of our school days and stuff. They're understanding about that. And said they're familiar with doing that and scheduling around it to kind of work with schools as they kind of go with this. And the other thing I kind of want to bring up is this might be an opportunity for us to tap into that line to utilize at the elementary school specifically, and maybe even at the middle school because it's relatively close, speaking and stuff. I know elementary's got other stuff middle school's got other power and stuff, but specifically the elementary school, that's kind of where the avenue is that we might have an opportunity here. So I want to kind of just throw that out to the board. I think we're going to work on that with Liberty Gas and figure out some pricing and some numbers as that kind of unfolds. And I could see us coming to the board with a proposal when that's appropriate, whether it's through the budget season next year or even earlier this year as the project kind of unfolds for the town to see if we can get involved in some of the benefits of this project.
So what's the timeline for that project, for the gas line?
They're still planning it out, it sounds like, and they have to go through the process here in town to get it approved through the Board of Selectmen and everybody else. So it doesn't sound like they're going to start any of the work for it until 20 like later this year or even into 2026. So I don't think that work would happen at the elementary school this summer, but it could be happening around the elementary school in 2026 potentially, that summer there. So
Did they say, or I know this is more of a town question, not a school question.
Yeah.
But because you're bringing it up, I'm going to ask. If you don't know, that's okay.
Yep.
Is there a main driver why they're running the line through town?
I don't
It's gonna
know.
go across the river.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a right and go under the river.
Oh, into Merrimack.
Yeah.
I think it's to the power's ultimately going to Budweiser. Like that's what they're trying to get it to.
The same proposal, was it natural gas? Oh, we had a natural gas pipeline.
A couple of years ago, it was a thing in town that was gonna run right along the river, across everybody's property. This was probably maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I think it was a warrant article, and I think it lost.
That's right.
Because
Yeah,
it was gonna go
people voted no.
through Larry's property and all those.
Okay.
Now, they spoke, I don't know, I'm not as familiar with this, but maybe you guys do, that there's another gas line like near Page Road or something like that?
That's
Is
what I
that?
was remembering.
Further
Okay.
down, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if it's connected to this, but I remember they were talking about
There's a local
it.
paving company that ran a gas line.
Yes, that's what they were kept talking
To their
about, yeah.
plant.
Yeah, yeah. So they were talking about that and whether this can connect to that somehow, but I was focused on the school aspect, so I don't know all the answers to that.
Interesting. Well, yeah, keep us posted.
Yeah, but I have, excuse me, plans if anyone wants to look at it. It makes no sense to me, but for someone else it does, so there you go.
like we're have a notice of intent here as well.
Yes, so this is the notice of intent to stay on the building aid list with the state. This is not, and I want to make this clear for people at home or for whatever, this is not that we're going to necessarily run the same back project back forward, right? But there's no harm in staying on the building aid list. So we have to do this by May 1st is the deadline. The state sent this out this week to school districts who wanted to stay on the list. So we started a working draft of the letter here that you'll see attached right there. Why I wanted, excuse me, to put it on the agenda tonight is specifically on page 5, section G. There's a whole section of officially having this discussion at a board meeting to continue with this letter and to make sure that's included in the minutes. So I just want to do that formal step of including it on our board agenda and making sure it's in our minutes tonight, that we had a discussion about continuing to be on the list for building aid. These are all just a first draft of everything you see here, some of the answers and some responses. Our intent is, again, this isn't due till May 1st, and since it's me and Julie's first time doing this letter, to send it in well in advance to get feedback from the state in case we did anything incorrectly or inaccurately. We'll have plenty of time to fix it by May 1st. But this is essentially what it will look like with some other details to come. For the costs you see associated for the project, because we haven't proposed any changes to the project at this point, we just, and again, this is not saying we're going to use the same project that was proposed last year, but for purposes of staying on this list, we have to use the current project that's kind of in place with the state. We just took all the numbers and put a 3% increase on everything across the board for simplicity's sake. We can reach out specifically to Kyle, and to get more accurate numbers here, which we may do, just so we're more accurately reflecting this. But as a starting point for our working draft to make sure we were doing it correctly, we just wanted to put some, at a minimum, placeholders in so we knew what we were doing and stuff like that. So
Then can we amend this once we have a direction and projected costs?
it depends on what the direction is, right? So this is dependent on a new building as the project, right? And not only a new building, but a project that's most similar to what the project was that was proposed. So just like hypothetically, if you were to build a new project on the high school site, you're probably changing the project significantly enough. And again, that's not going to happen, so I don't want you to think that is. Just trying to use a simple example that you would have to come off the list and kind of reapply. That doesn't mean we wouldn't get building aid. So for example, last year, they went, I think, all the way down to the 12th or 13th project on the list that was actually approved by voters and went forward. And there's about 17 on the list last year, and I don't know if all of those will continue to remain on the list. So we could do a different style project, whether it's renovation, which has been discussed at Facilities Committee a lot. And we would have to come off our spot where I think we're fourth or fifth right now.
I think
We might be third?
we're third.
Oh, third right now, and fall down to the bottom of that list, but it may not take forever to get there. There's also, it's just, the reality is we don't know where building aid is going at from the state level. I mean, it could not be there, period, for anybody kind of moving forward as they kind of determine how they're going to use their funds at the state level. So while we have all these conversations about this, it just may not be available.
Yeah, just to chime in real quick, because Kyle Barker has been checking in with me periodically about just this specifically. So he is available to, we'd have to retain him for that limited purpose. He said it would be pretty inexpensive. It's like 1 day's worth of work to update just the numbers. And my understanding is that there is not currently funding allocated for building aid projects. However, our position for this particular application is pretty strong because at least he's been following the schools ahead of us, and he's feeling strongly that those schools are not going to be in a position to move forward. So, but again, there's caveats to this. This is just for a new build. So, again, we're already we're in a position. It makes sense to stay on the list, but this is no indication that we're moving in that direction.
Yeah, I think there's two huge things with building aid in general. Just this is more my opinion than anything else, but just to keep the board informed, is what the state decides to do with it in general. Right? Are they going to continue to fund building projects, period, or not? That's obviously a big thing that has to be decided. And then the Concord project. The Concord project's going to be, nine figures, over $100 million, whatever they end up, they've made some changes to their project, and where they're gonna put it and some other things, which actually might change their where they are on the list because they're changing the site completely where it is. But that's kind of the huge domino for literally everyone, is like, when does the Concord project move forward, and then what happens from there? Because that's such a massive, massive project, so.
I will make a motion to remain on the list for building aid.
Second.
Motion and a second, additional discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? That carries 5-0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is out-of-district tuition projections and withdrawal from special ed.
Yeah, so the attachment is the same from February, but I have some updates from our attorney, which I'm very happy that we reached out to, because she gave us some great information about it also. So the first thing that's really interesting about this, and I asked her multiple times to ensure that I wasn't misunderstanding what she said, is because this is a reserve fund, we actually don't have to have a public hearing to take the money out. We can just take the money out. Now, we have to be very specific on the purpose for the money. So in this example, it would be X amount of money towards out-of-district tuition, right? Like whatever that number is, let's just use 50,000 for simplicity's sake. And we can solely use it for that purpose. And if we don't end up using it for that purpose, it goes back into the fund, right? So you can't use it for anything else. You have to be very specific on what the poll is for. And then if you don't use it for that, you have to kind of give it back to the fund and stuff like that. So that gives us a little flexibility, maybe the best word, but a little bit of time to play with here and to kind of protect ourselves in a way as well, because we don't want to empty out that account. Obviously, we have a warrant article next week connected to this. Hopefully, that goes our direction and we can add some funds to that. But if we, again, because this is based on projections, we're projecting to be over in that line. But if things change and we're not as over as we thought, or, the reverse happens and a student moves out, for example, and we don't end up being over at all, we don't want to put ourselves in a challenging position where we don't have as much money in that account. So we have that kind of flexibility. We just have to be specific on how we do it. And then the timing can be at any point. We could do it, next meeting, if you so decided, or you could do it at the end of the school year when we have official numbers on everything like that, and at any point. There's some other details and just some processes that she gave us to make sure that we're following everything from a legality standpoint, but those are kind of the big points that she gave us related to this.
So really the only timing issue is just having us vote on it. Because when you're talking about like taking it out and then if you don't use it, put it back in, why would you take it out unless we were going to use it, right? There's no, I understand if we had to do a public hearing,
Yeah.
because then that's a longer,
Correct.
but it seems like we would just vote on it and you'd take it out and pay
Right.
whatever you need to pay.
That's what she said most people do, is they wait till the
Gotcha.
end of the year. So
Okay.
where they have a specific amount that they're polling, and then they can kind of do it. I mean, the thing that you run into is, we're talking, it's a bottom line budget, right? School budgets are. So the discussion would be, we're probably not going to be over in other lines, for example. So do you want to pull the money to cover it at that point, right? Because we can probably make up the difference and say the money we didn't spend on, just use paraprofessional salaries for an easy example. We have plenty of those open positions still, right? Like, we're going to have underspend in that particular line so that they could be offset there, so.
So point being, we don't have to do anything this meeting. We have some time to.
Right, my concern, I had two concerns why I brought it up last meeting.
Yep.
Because I thought we had to do a public
Public
hearing.
meeting, yeah.
And the timing of that, where you have to do it 10 days out of a posting.
Right.
Follow all that can take honestly 3 to 4 weeks when you're following all the proper steps to kind of do it. So I wanted to make sure we didn't fall behind on that. And so that was like the big purpose of doing it more timely. And also I am just very conscious, I've seen it happen in other districts where they fall way behind on their payments, specifically because of special ed and specifically because of out-of-district tuition. Unfortunately, I'm going to use Merrimack Valley as the example, right? They're in a huge hole, not specifically just special ed, but special ed, coupled with a roof issue at one of their schools. And I don't want we're very conscious of making sure our finances are correct, right? So we don't want to be in a position where we've overspent what our budget is and stuff like that.
So I guess the question is, I took a look at the report and where we were with our finances, Julie's report, it doesn't seem like our accounts are such that we're gonna overdraw or we're gonna have an issue that we need to immediately do something this meeting, but I would assume you guys would tell us
Yeah, so we're,
when the time comes.
yeah, we started to try to project out end of the year funds, and obviously, it's February, March, like that's
Sure.
still kind of
Yep.
a tall task to kind of figure it out.
Absolutely.
But concentrating on personnel, which is the thing we can honestly kind of control the most, right? Like the people we have working for us are the people working for us. We might fill a position here or there, as things kind of go for the rest of the year because we still have open positions. But where are we from a number standpoint there? And we're in good shape in the sense of we're not going to overspend in personnel. We'll be underspent in personnel. Not in like the $1 million range like you were as a district last year, but in enough where if some or all the warrant articles are passed and some of these other things come up, we should be financially okay to take care of all that type of stuff. So, so that's kind of where we're at.
Okay.
I still think we're going to be over in that line. Like, I'm still pretty confident on that projection, the way that our bills have been coming in and stuff like that. I still think it's anywhere from 25 to 60, which sounds like a big range, but it's not with the numbers that we're talking of. A lot of it is dependent on specific attendance of students and days left of school and how much actual attendance is there. So it is something that, and like I think we've said in the past through the budgeting process and through meetings here, is we want to spend the money on the lines that we say we're spending, right? We want to be accurate on that, right? Like we don't want to have to do all this transferring and shifting. There are things related to personnel when, someone may leave us and we have to pull in a contracted service to take care of something just because of the services provided. But in the things we can control as much as possible, we want to be accurate in the budgeting that we do and then spend the money we say we're spending, right? That's a big part of making sure we're doing the right things. So that's why I think could be, something we want to look at now, later, whenever the case may be.
Sounds good.
All right, so we'll hold off for now.
Are you okay with that? I know you wanted this back on the agenda.
I did, I, more for the attorney update than anything else, so I'm okay with waiting until
Okay.
they say so. Yep.
All right, sounds good. Any other questions on this one?
Nope.
No?
All right, credit card discussion and policy DKC.
I know this is something, that the board has been focused on as lately, and frankly, us as well. This is, I want to kind of straddle the tightrope here for a second. I think, me and Julie come from a district that, and I think even Sarah came from a district from us, a different district from us, handles some financial things very, very differently, right? Like I've worked administratively in 2 districts previous to here. And this is specific with credit cards and the use of credit cards and how they're used and stuff like that. It's made us a little bit, we've been trying to have an open mind about it. Everyone's got their different procedures on how to handle different things and good and bad and every between. Just because someone does something different doesn't mean it's wrong or anything like that. But there's a lot of credit card use in this district by a lot of different people. And just to give you a perspective, in our previous district, the business administrator had the credit card, and that was it. No one else used the credit card. So, and I think in Derry, where Dr. Taylor was previously, it was similar to that. In Timberlane, where I was,
SAU had credit cards.
but, other districts are differently. My wife works in Bedford as her role as an IB coordinator. She has a district credit card, right, that she uses to pay for a bunch of things related to their IB programming and stuff like that. So every district's different depending on job capabilities, capacities, and all that stuff. And I think one of the reasons why in Bow it was handled that way is the checks for out-of-student activity accounts, I won't say was looser, but I don't know a better description other than that. It was much looser to get a check to do something out of student activities. We went over that policy a couple of meetings ago. I don't know if people remember. Because of our finance system that we use, it's a much lengthier process you have to have 2 signatures on it internally before you do it. It has to be run through the finance office at the SAU, has to be printed from the finance system before the check can go out. So that can be a multi-day process where we were previously. Literally the checkbook would come to me as the building principal, I'd sign it, and it'd go off into the world, right? So it's just, there's different checks and balances, pros and cons to whatever system you kind of want to use. And I think some of what we're seeing is the credit card use for
stuff that is going to be reimbursed out of the student activity account is where we're seeing some struggles, right? Because we're seeing some larger expenses that are covering different activities, different events that are happening that are ultimately going to be reimbursed by the student activity account, but there's an immediacy to pay for it by using the school credit card and stuff. The reality is there is some things that you just have to pay for with a school credit card. We certainly run into that in different places we've been where a group you're working with a company, this is rare, but they just won't take anything but a credit card, but a lot of places are very good about accepting purchase orders, especially if they regularly work with schools. They are used to the purchase order process and accepting checks and those type of things. So I know you wanted to have this discussion, so turn it over.
I had asked this be added to the agenda. It seemingly is noticeable to me, and I know Mr. Plansky, you've identified several over the past few months of expenses put to credit cards that really shouldn't be applied to credit cards, and it's created a lot of questions and the need for my seat on greater controls in place and procedures around our credit card policy, which is why we've linked it here tonight. And I just want to make sure from this seat that we are watching, right? We do review every credit card transaction that comes through. We do look at it, and believe me, we are asking questions about it. So I just want to set that tone from the top that we do look at this.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we want to kind of, I'm going to use a very simple example. We talked about it today. The fax program at the high school, right? They got to buy food, and that's like you need it, like, you can't buy it too far in advance, right? You need fresh produce, and it needs to be relatively close to when you're purchasing it and everything like that. So right now, we utilize a district credit card system for that. At our previous district, what we did is we set up essentially a debit card through the grocery store, right? Like there was X amount of money. It was Market Basket that we used up there, right? It was Market Basket we used up there. Say you put $6,000 on the year there, you split it up into 2 semesters, $3,000 here, $3,000 there, and you spend off of that. So it's kind of set pricing, and you're not using a school credit card. You've got something already in place through a purchase order process for it and stuff. So we have some ideas of maybe changing some practices a little bit. We discussed separate than this was actually a little while ago, because we have the policy and we want to honor that policy, but we may revisit that policy to loosen up checks a little bit, because I think that will help with some of these issues a little bit, and that process. But we got to work through our e-finance company, the program, to kind of figure that out. But it's definitely something we're conscious of, and I'm probably going to update some procedures around.
Is there a reason, and there may be a not very obvious reason, I just don't understand it because I'm not in finance, that the student activity fee doesn't have its own credit card that can be used, or its own debit card linked directly to its own account? Rather than going through the district? I
don't know, but my gut answer to that, I would need to do some more research, is you have so many sub accounts off of it, like you don't want to run into too many like cooks in the kitchen on it, right? Like you could have 100 sub accounts within that one student activity account. So who gets a credit card and who doesn't for that, right?
Right. I would think it would be just one central person.
Yeah.
The principal of the school, or
right,
that does the credit card purchases only, and that's it.
And the student activity account is more like a savings account than it is like the what the district budget is, right? Like it's kind of just a souped up personal bank account. It's not a personal bank account, but again, it's an account that has this money in it, and you can write a check out of it and then pay for it. And it's just like your own bank account in a way, right?
I'm just thinking, the students pay in for, and I know I can say because Grace is going to the basketball game. They're going to the Celtics game on Monday, and that was the purchase that was highlighted. I think those were the tickets that some of the seniors are going to for a senior activity. Parents cut a check. We pay in for the field trip. I assume that gets deposited into a student activity. I don't understand why then, once all that's grouped, that a card couldn't pay for that from that account.
Yeah, and maybe that's something we can look into, because I don't know, right? Like it is a separate thing from the school,
right,
pile of money that we have to take care of budgetary items. So maybe there is something we can set up there where it is kind of a card connected to it. We'd have to check with our bank to see what that practice is.
Right.
I'm not familiar with something like that, but that doesn't mean it's not something we can do.
And again, like I said, I may not know too much about it because I'm not in finance.
Yeah.
It just seems like a lot of the stuff we're seeing is coming from that student
a lot of student activity
fee, and so, or that account in one way or another. And so if that account had a central person who was in charge of making sure the expenses came out of there with a single card, you know.
Yeah, and student activities in general is something we really need to. I don't know how else to say this. I'm sorry. We need to clean it up. Like it's not great.
Well, I feel like it's something that's been on our audit before.
And that's what I was about to say, right? Like we
And
just.
I think that's true of every
Yeah.
district.
Yeah, I think it's true everywhere. But
It's
like,
not unique to us.
we got the draft audit, and when we have the final one, we'll put it on the board agenda and discuss it and stuff. We'll wait till we have that one. But the draft, like that, our issue is student activities. Everything else is in good shape. You know, like the student activities, they pull things randomly. Our percentage of things being done correctly was not good. Like it would have been a F grade if this was a school. You know, like percentage that was done correctly, and they're all fixable things. They're all innocent mistakes, right? Like, but that should not happen. Like they're just mistakes that like are so easily to be fixed if we're just following proper procedures, that we shouldn't be running into this. Like maybe there's one random one they pull that's tough, but when about half they're pulling are not kosher, that's not great. So we got to be better at that, you know, across the board in student activity accounts. And it's tricky, and I think it's hard. Like I've been on both sides of it, right? Where it's easy for me now to be like, get your stuff done a week in advance so this isn't an issue. Where like I've also been on the side of like, oh, this thing is happening, this great opportunity is happening. If we can jump on it like now, like something showed up that like we weren't expecting, let's immediately get something done. Like I've been on both sides of it. So the side I'm on now is like, please do your stuff early in advance, you know. But I've certainly been on that other side where it's like, hey, this is a great opportunity. Like let's not pass this up and try and capitalize on something that's unfolding. So
is there a separate account for each grade?
in student activity, it's by club and group and organization.
Yeah,
So,
hundreds of
yeah, so like, for
sub-accounts.
example, each class will have one, right? Like class of 25, class of 26. And each National Honor Society is gonna have one. I'm sure Student Council has one, you know, that, and then there's all sub-accounts off of that. You might
It's
set
the
up
same
a,
pile of money.
it's all the same, a bank account, yeah, so.
So, going back to like what you were talking about with the prior districts and the BA being the one that has the credit card, that makes sense to me because the BA, you know, when you have a credit card, you have a credit limit, and that credit limit may not, and the expenditures up on that credit limit may not correlate to what we've budgeted. And so I'm assuming that the other districts do it that way because the BA then has to go look and see whether those expenditures match what's budgeted.
Yeah.
So that seems problematic to me. I don't know who's, we don't have to go through right now as to who has credit cards, but at least the way we've been doing it, hopefully those people are also cross-referencing our budget.
Yeah, I think more often than not, the purchases are not large, right? They're the most frequent thing, and I have a whole feelings about that. I guess I'll share, so might as well, is so much of it is Amazon orders. And just like, again, it's from a good place. Like, people are trying to save money, right? So they're going to Amazon, they're getting a great deal on something, and Amazon really only accepts credit cards, right? So they're trying to use the credit card to do that. Where, you know, I'm of the philosophy of it's okay to go through like a vendor who you have purchase orders with. Maybe in the moment it's a little bit more expensive, but in the long run it's actually going to save you money because you develop relationships with your vendors. You don't run into like bad products. Like, I've seen Amazon stuff come in over the years that's just like, that's not what I was sold, right? Like, I can remember a very specific example in our previous school. This science teacher worked her tail off to get 20 books from all these different vendors, and about half of them were trash when they came in. And so we had to throw them away and spend more money in the end anyways, right? So in that, like, oh, I'll just go to Amazon and I'm doing the right thing because I'm saving money, right? Because I'm going to get a better deal. Well, you may not be in the long run, right? Like, we in Bow had a great relationship with Quill, who does a lot of students, school supplies and stuff like that. They give us free stuff all the time. Like, they would, because we would constantly use them as our vendor to buy everything, pens, papers, paper clips, whatever. And every so often you would hit thresholds and they're like, here, have this for free, have this for free, have this for free, right? And those are kind of like benefits that you just need to establish with relationships. And you get, you know, it's a little different in this community, but maybe not. Like, we did a lot of our books in Bow through Gibson's, which is a local bookstore up in Concord. And while it was expensive for like the lay person to go in and buy books from them, so people were like nervous to do it, because of the volume we were ordering stuff for, we got great deals, and we were getting as good a deals as you were going through Amazon to get them with, right? And getting actual quality, because you're getting it through a reputable bookstore who was getting your stuff for you. You may not be able to do it with a math textbook, but like a humanities book that you're going to read, if everyone's going to read Great Gatsby, right? Like you can go through that type of bookstore and get it done. So,
Do we have a school Amazon account, or are people having to order through their?
We have a school Amazon.
yeah,
And we are working on, they do purchase orders. We're going to try to
yeah.
see how.
So how many credit cards are out there that are linked to that account?
18.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a lot. And, staff's going to be pissed at us tomorrow because we're talking about this right now. It's fine. But there was like again, I don't know how else to say this, kind of a fear element when you had to go to the BA and use the credit card. Like, you better have been certain about the purchase you were making if you were going to trudge down to the SAU and ask for something to be bought through the credit card. Dwayne up in Bow was really nice. The guy who was in charge in Timberlane, while an excellent BA, was not friendly. So you better have needed what you needed when you had to go ask him for something with the credit card, right? And you better have a heck of an explanation on why you couldn't have bought it any other way, because he had no problem telling you sorry, I'm not buying that, And I'm not looking to have a fear culture around purchases and stuff like that. But it does make you think twice. Is there a different way I can get this done? Because if I have to go explain to the BA why I need I don't know, something down the surface might be silly, you might think of a different avenue than trying to sell that to the BA. So
Well, I think 18 is a lot. Maybe we can.
18's a lot.
Trim
So
that
again,
down.
it gets back
18's a
to
lot.
the whole comment about we need tighter controls, better process around this whole thing. It sounds like the superintendent's already thinking about that, and more to come to the board.
I don't think we're gonna have 18 next year. I'll say that. I already know that. Not even think.
Anything else on this one tonight? Appreciate that update. Thank you.
Yep.
I was just gonna say, I wanna plug Ann in Marati, because I know you can see on the manifest, she triple checks every single credit card that comes in with the statement from Amazon and matches up the printing and then initials here, and then somebody else initials there. I mean, she goes through a very, very thorough process to make sure that these are legitimate expenses that are being reimbursed, and so this has nothing to do with the type of job that she's doing, and our scrutiny is absolutely nothing to do with her, and I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, that's a great plug, right? And the added effort that the board has put on her, me, right? We'll call it as me, right? And now the transparency to the board, though, so we actually have an idea of what it is we're signing, right? And we can go through digitally and say, all right, well, this doesn't make sense, this makes sense, this doesn't, right? So we do look at this now electronically before we sign this manifest. So, again, yes, thank you to Ann. All right, next up is legislative action.
Yeah,
December.
this is just a quick plug. So our own Lauren.
In DC.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Sorry.
No problem.
In Washington, D.C., March 8th through the 11th.
Yeah.
There we go.
So our own Lauren Crowley, our director of food service here, is one of two New Hampshire representatives from food service going down to Washington, D.C. To kind of advocate for the School Nutrition Association and programming here, not just in New Hampshire but across the country, in terms of reimbursing meals and what's the proper way to handle school lunches and breakfasts and all sorts of that, nutritional goals that schools should have, everything along those lines. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to her. She's meeting with the representatives from New Hampshire while she's down there, the 4 reps from New Hampshire, and we'll be meeting with a larger group. There's about 850 school nutrition professionals who will be down here at this meeting from across the country, and addressing just a variety of issues. So we're pretty lucky to have someone who's on kind of the front lines, kind of engaging in this type of advocacy work for our students and for the state and everything. So just a quick shout out to Lauren. I do continue to think this is an issue that a lot of people can get behind, looking at how we handle school meals and all these type of things that a lot of people can support in the end. So kudos to her.
Yeah, I saw that post on Facebook as well, so thank
Okay.
you to Lauren.
Yeah. And that's all I got this evening.
All right, appreciate that update. We'll turn it over to Ms. Starling.
All right. As Brian mentioned, we did receive the draft of our audit, so I've started going through and preparing the documents that need to be sent back to the auditors. I have most of that complete. We're just waiting on a couple things from attorneys. And then once we have that, we'll be able to go forth with the final draft, and I'll be able to share that with all of you. I did want to touch on the GMS plumbing issue. As was alluded to earlier, we've continued to have additional issues with overflowing toilets and clogs and whatnot. So this morning, actually, or was it yesterday? The days are blurring together at this point. We did have another blockage. They had to come out and they discovered that one of two of our large pumps, the sewage pumps, is going to be needing to be replaced.
Is that your worst
Pump or
hearing?
grinder?
Right.
Right. Who
right?
manifested
Is
that
it the
last
grind?
time?
Said pump. No,
They
I
said
don't
pump.
know.
I mean, listen,
I don't know
Dave said
specific.
pump.
Well, I don't know.
Way to go.
It's only a matter of time. I mean, we've been in that room.
Since I'm on YouTube for all 15 people watching in the crowd right here, if we could limit wipes down the toilets, that would be huge. Just
Paper
can we be
towels.
careful if you can have a quick conversation with your kid? Don't throw a wipe down the toilet. That
They don't
would be
grind well.
excellent. They do not grind well. No. So, no wipes, please.
Yes. So we are awaiting on an estimate for that, and I will certainly update you when we have that.
Question is, do they still make those?
Well, honestly,
Right?
there's just a
I'm
lot
sure
of-
they do.
We're going to find out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Better
And it's
than
gonna be
happen than not
super.
happen.
You just open it up and just drop it in there.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Sure. So we did receive a letter from the Hudson Fire Department indicating that all three schools are connected to their fire panel, to their fire alarm system. So there was never any fees attached to that, but there was a warrant article that passed in Hudson last year that is going to into effect as of January 1st of this year. So moving forward, we are going to be given a fee of $1,150 per year per school, I believe, for the fire alarm monitoring fee. I did reach out to Chief Nickel and I haven't heard back yet, so I will certainly update you when I do. But just to see if there's, I don't know, I don't think that there's any way around this. I think that it's probably likely that because it's the amount of monitoring, the round the clock monitoring that we have to plug into the Hudson system, but I will certainly find more information for you and get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Sure. And then with Pennachuck, we were also advised that any hydrants, fire hydrants that are owned not by the town but by the school district would have to be inspected by us and not by them any longer. So the issue that we're having is we only received one letter indicating that there was just one hydrant that was privately owned by us on the Campbell property, but we actually have 4 hydrants, so we're trying to get some clarification with Pennachuck as to who owns those hydrants and who's responsible for those hydrants. So we're gonna get more information on that. We need somebody basically just to come out from Pennachuck to just take a look and do and get that information.
Yeah, and the question I had asked was, are these hydrants also included on the town billing?
Right.
Because we pay a lot of money for hydrants, and I just want to make sure there's no
Right,
overlap.
exactly, yes, so I am also reaching out to Kim as well. LMS, the roof leak has been taken care of, thank goodness. They found that the roof itself was perfectly fine. It was the metal flashing over a certain portion of the roof over the library that was an issue, so that did need to be replaced. And that was not covered under the warranty, so we will be receiving an invoice for that. Luckily, though, thank goodness, it's not an issue with the roof itself. The ceiling tiles in that area had to be special ordered, so we are waiting on those to be replaced, but the flashing is taken care of at this point.
Do you know, was the flashing replaced when they did the roof, by chance?
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm curious if it was replaced when they did the roof, and was the flashing the problem because it was damaged, or was it just not installed correctly?
Right, and I can get
Because
more.
if it was replaced with the roof,
Mhm.
and it's not installed correctly, I have questions as to why it's not covered by the warranty. But if,
That's a
you know,
really
if
good
a branch
question.
fell and hit it, that's on us, right? So.
Right. I will certainly get more information on that. And then lastly, I do have a solar update. Dynamic Grid and KW Management both came out last week to LMS and did work on getting the final steps taken care of to get our solar up and running. There was some of the testing they needed to get on the roof in order to do that. Because of the snow, they weren't able to do that. So I did speak with Kay today, and she said that she was hoping that that person from KW would be able to come out later this week. Hopefully some more with the warmer temperatures, they should be able to complete their testing. Once that's completed, I guess the commissioning agent is already preparing the report that needs to go to Eversource. They just need the last bit of information that comes from this piece of testing. Once that happens, it will go to Eversource, and then we'll be waiting on their approval and the new meter so that we can go ahead and start collecting off of that.
Do we have any idea what the ETA is for getting the new meter, or is that?
That's where she said, I think that was like the 7 to 10 days
once they start
after. Right.
They allegedly, again, it's new to us, once they start that, they have 10 days to install the meter. So like that is like once they get this testing report in, it's a 10-day window, but
Okay.
we'll see.
Again, this was all supposed to be complete last week. So
Exactly. So
it was all supposed to be complete 2 years ago. Anyway, thank you. Anything else for the business administrators? Tina, any final questions?
No.
Making sure. Okay. All right, great. We'll turn it over to Dr. Taylor for curriculum update tonight.
Great. So, just going off of the conversation that we had last meeting, and Matt, your question about some cohort tracking and some more deep diving into some data. I did that for everyone to give you kind of a visual. So, this first slide shows you the left is the math for fall, K-8, and then the right is winter, K-8. If you look at the table, you can track the cohorts if you look on the diagonal, right? So like in 22, kindergarten fall was 10% scoring at that proficiency level. It's either, so reports on, like we talked about last week, last meeting, they report on early on grade level to meeting grade level proficiency. So this is a combination of both of those things. It's early on and meeting grade level proficiencies. So you can follow, and the things to highlight here are that it's clear that each cohort shows growth in every year from fall to winter. And then grade 6 has a nice consistent progression of increase in proficiency from 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, which is really nice to see. Again, our focus areas remain the same in what I talked about last time, in really concentrating on that tiered intervention support and really looking into our data-driven instruction and how we are vertically aligning and tightening up that curriculum piece, because those are vital in helping increase these scores and get these cohorts to continue to grow every single year in proficiency. And you'll see that if you go to the next slide, again, you see that kind of same trend from the reading side of things. Each cohort shows that growth from fall to winter, and that grade 6 cohort, again, we have that growth each year. Again, focusing on those areas of improvement that I just talked about, same with math. Any questions before we move to PSAT on iReady? No? All right. Let's try to give appropriate wait time. All right, so I really did a deep dive into PSAT because I gave you some kind of simplistic data last time, and we did more of a deeper dive into iReady because we had just finished that window. So I went on to College Board and pulled some historical data. We can only go back as far as 2022, so that's all. I couldn't go any further to do any real cohort tracking. So this first graph is grade 9 total benchmark performance. So it includes the math and the evidence-based reading and writing, and it shows how many students met both benchmarks on both of those subtests and how many met one, and then what percentage meant none. So really great to see that our 9th graders consistently in all 3 years outperform the state in meeting both benchmarks. And then the percentage of students meeting no benchmarks decreases year over year, which is really nice to see for 9th grade. The second graph shows you math specifically. So again, for 9th grade, we're consistently outperforming the state each year, and that percentage of students not meeting benchmark decreases. Do you have a question?
I was just gonna say, I mean, we're clearly not the state to be in if you want to go into anything that involves math, because, at least according to this chart, because the state, I mean, we're outperforming them, but 65% of the 9th graders were not yet approaching.
We're still, the state is still better than
Yeah.
a lot of the country.
Well,
like,
it's concerning.
I know.
Sorry, continue.
No, it's fine. I know. It's, yeah, I see it too. You're not wrong. But okay. So now the next set of this slide is for the evidence-based reading and writing. We are vastly outperforming the state in 23 and 24 in reading. We were a little bit below them in 22, but then like skyrocketed over them in reading, which was, I was like, wow, that's awesome to see. So then we moved to 10th grade, and I'm just going to kind of clump 10th and 11th grade together, because as I was digging through this data and thinking of some things that you guys mentioned too about the PSAT. So PSAT 9th grade. I'm just in 9th grade, just started. It's October. It's the PSAT. Oh my God, I got to take this seriously. I'm in 10th grade. Maybe, I don't know. Nothing really happened in 9th grade. Tell me if I'm wrong. Right? Nothing really. I'm coming into the mind of high schoolers right now. Nothing really happened in 9th grade with my PSAT scores. Didn't really talk about it with my teachers, my parent, like no one really mentioned much. So, maybe I'll try a little bit. Then 11th grade comes around and we're like, it's not the SAT. The SAT is where it really is. All of my everything, all my eggs are going into that basket. You can kind of see that kind of trending in the data that we're looking at, right? So we do have some highlights, but we do have some very obvious declines, right? So we really, not only do we need to continue on to the focus areas that I've set for the whole year, but we really need to look at data-driven instruction and using these assessments and making them purposeful for students so that they understand why they're taking them. They're not just taking it because it's something that we said that you have to take, so take it. But if we don't explain it to students and we don't use it and put it in front of them and say, this is why it's meaningful, it's not going to be meaningful. Am I right?
Yep.
A little bit? Right?
No,
And I'm putting you on
I don't want to
the
out
spot a
myself,
little
but
bit.
this sounds exactly like me. And I was gonna say if you're looking at the data, like the people that just don't try on it, or like yeah, that's gonna bring the score down like a bunch. So you're just gonna have to account for that too.
Right, exactly. And because I really do not think that students are not that proficient. Like if you look at the SAT data that we had for 2024, that we presented in when was that, August or November or October? No, September. I don't know my months
month.
right now.
Yeah,
Pick a
fall.
month, whatever fall month that was. The SAT scores show differently, right? And they don't grow from being, we have all these kids that are showing not yet proficient or not yet approaching to then having outscored the state in the SAT, right? So we just need to change some of those practices and how we view and use these assessments, because I feel like this was a good exercise in seeing where students are falling, but I feel like a lot of it is about the assessment culture for 10th and 11th grade.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
The other thing I'm wondering too, and I'm sorry. do you
No,
wanna go?
you go ahead.
It feels like over the years, at least compared to when I was in high school, there has been a minimizing of the SAT, meaning that colleges don't require it anymore. It's not mandatory. And so while it carried a lot of weight, I feel like, and it was made clear that it was super important, I'm not sure that my 12th grader and my 10th grader are that concerned about it because it wasn't even required from the school she applied to.
Right. Yeah, and I think it also has to do with like how we use them in class, right? In our instruction. Like the same thing goes with the SAS. Like we need to use it as a data point, and we need to put it in front of kids, and we need to make it important and meaningful in how they can compare themselves to themselves. So the PSAT is a really good example of how can you compare your growth for like it personally to yourself from 9th grade to 11th grade in these same skills. Like,
Do you think that they care about that? Because I'm hearing
you can make it meaningful for them in a way that they would care about it. I've done it in students that really gave no care at all to these assessments, and I brought it in and used it and kept it in front of them. We made goal charts and all those kinds of things, and they started to care about it because they wanted to improve from the last time. Like, this is the way, like, the only way that you can really see how you're learning. Like, what can you do for yourself to improve? Like, what do you need to do? How, like, and make them take some ownership and get some autonomy back on their own learning. So you can make it meaningful. Will you make it meaningful to 100% of all kids? No. But you could get more than what we have and what the data is showing us currently.
So I have two more questions or / points. I guess one of them is, since some of them may not be motivated by just improving, can we bribe them with something? Because there's some,
Can. That is a legitimate
I'm
strategy.
legitimately asking. Because if we're going to say for us, if we decide for us that this is an important benchmark for us to determine how well we're doing in teaching them, we need them to actually want to perform. And so I very much look forward to seeing how you're able to do that organically through bringing this in. But it's not beneath me to bribe them.
To bribe kids.
Yeah, and as the former high school administrator, bribery works well. On anything, you want high school kids to do something, and the number one bribery tool is food. Yep. So, if you tell the kids, hey, perform above state average.
It's not really bad.
Yeah, maybe it sounds a better word, but
that's a better word.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
And it's amazing, the simplest thing, hey, if you guys score above state average when we get the scores, we'll give you an ice cream social or something like that.
Yeah,
and you actually catch kids who are like, you know what, I'll look twice at that question because I wouldn't mind some food down the road if we do well, right? I feel like that's true.
Yeah.
So
So that was point number one. I think that we should really think about that. And then I guess point number two is related to what Heidi was saying, which is, again, I think this comes back to the bigger picture that you're working on that's going to take a while to work on, which is what measures are we actually looking at in the sense of, do they matter, right? How do we measure success, right? And so historically, SATs, for those of us who are like inclined to, like, I want to go to this college, SATs were critically important because we knew we had to hit a certain score. So, and then that just also then tied back into how we were evaluated as a district, because if your kids are doing this well, you must be a smart district. So, so if that's something that's shifting, I think it's something we have to just keep an eye out for and figure out what's replacing that as a measure for success.
And it's like you mentioned when we had the data meeting in the fall about looking at holistic data and the student as a whole, not just these one snap test scores, but really looking at the data as a whole and the whole student and their whole experience, because that is also very important to look at.
Right. And I'm all about the plugs tonight, because I'm going to say that's one of the things I think our counseling office does so well, is that they talk to students and they see them as a whole and remind them that they're more than just a test score, that they're more than just, if you didn't do as well on this exam or you didn't do as well on this PSAT, you still have potential, that you can still do great things in the world, that it's just one piece of it. I think trying to figure out how that piece fits into the overall picture is kind of where the struggle is.
And that's where I think it's an established assessment culture, cultivating a positive mindset around all of this and not making it a high stress, anxiety provoking type of a situation, but just really having positive mindsets around assessments and not treating them as like one-time events, like everything shuts down and all this huge thing comes at you, just really shifting that mindset for everyone, for staff included, because a lot of times it's like, oh my gosh, they're taking this SAT, they're this PSAT or the SAS or whatever, and they have to do well, and then that translates onto the student, so it becomes this whole thing. So we're really going to be honing in and focusing in on those types of things to make those shifts. And as we do more curriculum work and all of that kind of stuff, this stuff is going to start to shift, but it takes a while.
I just want to make one note on the SAT, and this is more opinion-based than fact-based at this point. I get the sense that the importance of the SAT is starting to creep back. Like, we did swing all the way over here where schools were not utilizing it, not looking at it, and some of that aligned with the pandemic where everything got out of kind of sorts when people were looking at this testing stuff was inaccurate. But you talk to college admission, it's not the sole thing, but they don't ignore it, right? Like, if you have a kid who has an excellent profile and they scored not as great on the SAT, that's not going to be a deal breaker like it may have been in years past, but it can be something that pushes a kid over, right? Hey, you got a 3.0 overall, but your SAT came in at 1200. Like, okay, you can handle some high stakes stuff, right? And like that might be something that pushes a kid onto kind of that acceptance. It's not the deal breaker, but schools are not ignoring it as much. They feel like it burned them. They saw kids kind of when they totally ignored it, that they had kids who were not prepared for high stake learning environments, and they were struggling with that. And I think, I'm not a test score chaser. This should not be the sole thing. My two favorite stats from as a high school principal were our New Hampshire Scholar numbers, and that's a plug. I'm also on the New Hampshire Scholar board, so complete transparency there. But the New Hampshire Scholar numbers, and then your dual enrollment numbers. It's kids who can get dual enrollment credit showing that they can work at the college level, right? Those are my favorite two numbers to speak on of the students that we were working with. Those aren't test score numbers, but I feel if you're working on towards those, the test score kind of numbers kind of follow along, right? And you're going to have success in avenues such as the SAT. So,
I just had a question about the format of the slide. So if I'm right now looking at fall grade 11 PSAT, the total benchmark. Sorry. So it says the green is met both benchmarks, yellow is met one benchmark, and the red is met no benchmarks. Are the benchmarks an English and writing benchmark and a math benchmark, and that's kind of the combined total? Okay.
Yes.
So from there, when I scroll down to the next one,
the next slide.
The next slide, yeah.
Which one are you on, Tina?
I'm on. So I was on the grade 11 PSAT total benchmark performance, and then if you jump real quick to the next one, the fall grade 11 PSAT in math, those scores are abysmal. And so I don't know that, but the writing is good. So I don't know if combining the two is really painting a picture of, you know, we have this big yellow group in the middle when we combine those scores, because they at least met the English benchmark.
Right.
The
But
rating's not that great though, Tina, because we're way below the state.
we're way below the state, but it's way better than the math. I mean, the
Oh,
math
well,
is
yeah, yeah.
I'm kind of shocked. Like, and we've talked about math instruction and, you know, where our math scores need to be and what we need to do to fix them. But I'm very surprised that they're this low.
Well, I think we can assume from grade 9
Yeah.
that our kids are smart enough. So to me, this really is indicating what you're saying, which is it's a motivation issue. And for some reason, our
hope
kids are
so.
less motivated than the rest of the state.
Right. I do not feel, honestly, that 76% of our 11th graders are not approaching
Yeah, that's
benchmark for
absurd.
math. I really have a hard time believing
This
that.
past year.
This past year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really, really do. Again, because if you track it from 9th, 10th, and 11th grade,
Yeah.
it consistently goes down. And I feel it's more that motivation
Well,
piece. There's still...
Right, but that's not a cohort, right? You're not comparing the same
No,
cohort
no.
moving up through.
No, I'm not comparing
Okay.
the cohort, but if you just look across the years, like
Right.
11th grade consistently performs lower, which to me, like there are
Yeah.
still, and I will never say, like I said before, I have my focus areas because the data spoke to me as soon as I
Right.
got here and sat in the seat and looked at data. I was like, here are the 3 things that jumped right off the
Oh,
page to me without even talking to anybody. But this level of disparity says, I'm not quite sure we are, as 11th graders, taking it as
Okay.
seriously as
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this last time, like other schools that I've been at before, they only have 11th graders take PSAT, right?
Yeah.
So it is a true practice for your SAT later in the year, right? So there's a different level of seriousness to taking that PSAT. And there's pros and cons to both of these methods. I'm not saying one's better or the worse. Here, it's the third go-around the kids have had at the PSAT. They're probably thinking like, yeah, I got it. This is what this is going to look like when I take my SAT, right? So that's why, again, they might do better when they're in 9th grade, relatively speaking. Who knows? But I think an interesting dive down on this, not to make Dr. Taylor do more work, but it's comparing schools.
Could do more work.
Yeah, is compare. I can help her out with this because I love this stuff too. But just like comparing schools that do just the 11th grade only is going to take PSAT.
Yeah.
How are they performing? What's the jump between that compared to schools? Because there are a lot of schools that do it like how Campbell does it, where they have 9th, 10th, and 11th do it every single year. And what is their kind of like indicators there?
Do
and
any
stuff.
do just 9th and 11th?
That's what I was gonna say, is there
I don't know.
medium?
I'm sure people do. People do everything, but
yeah,
just like I
and
don't
it's a
know.
little bit different because the 9th graders take the PSAT 8-9, which
Yeah.
is a little bit less complex, and the PSAT is more complex and more aligned with the question types that are on the SAT. But I will absolutely do that because I am a data junkie. Like I go down these rabbit holes, like you had already asked, and I'm like, yeah, I already have some of that done because I went down that rabbit hole. So, I can absolutely do that, but I'm not right now advocate. I like to see the 3-year tracking because for our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, we don't have anything like we do. Like we have SAS. It is what it is, but at least we have it, right? Like we don't, and we have iReady. We don't have anything for high school that's kind of a common normed like assessment to look at year over year. So I like it for that fact, but obviously I'm amenable to like if we see completely different, but I think we need to start with that purpose.
Yeah.
If I'm an 11th grader, I'm seeing this for the 3rd time, it has no purpose to me. Why am I going to try?
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm like, oh my God, I've done this. A, C, DFG, whatever, you know, Christmas tree, when we used to have the Scantrons, right? Like, that's what happens. Like, it's boring and it's not purposeful. Everybody needs a purpose for doing something to be motivated to even try. Even if it's an incentive to have an ice cream social or a pizza party, that's motivation. That's a purpose for why I'm taking this. You know, it might not be why you're taking it, but, you know, there's different avenues, and I think we need to really start to shift that mindset.
Yeah. It is a steady
For sure.
decline,
Mm-hmm.
you know, from grade 9 to grade 11.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's continue to dive into it and see
Yeah.
how we can change the trajectory on this going into next year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. SAT will be fascinating to see how we do on that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, I don't quote me on any of this, but I'm remembering from other presentations I've seen, this dates back to even last year when I was coming on board, that the SAT scores here are usually pretty good, pretty solid, you know.
Yeah.
So something's clicking.
This
Time they
past,
take it
this
in March.
past year, our SAT scores were higher than they've been in a while, and I can guarantee you. Well, I don't want to guarantee, but because there are no guarantees, but we're not going to see SAT scores with 76% of our students not meeting benchmark on the SAT. We're not going to see that.
Well, then I think it proves the burnout point, and maybe we need to change the process and maybe just do it in 11th grade.
Yeah, we definitely, like, as I was putting all this together, I'm like, okay, we need to do something. We have to do something.
Danny, what do you think?
Like the SAT or the PSATs?
All of it.
I mean, as an incoming junior, I'm very stressed about the SATs, and I feel like no teacher has even talked about it at all. And I feel like now, like you were saying, like college is like, it's not required, but it makes you look a whole lot better if you do put it. And I just feel like none of my teachers have even like stepped on it.
There's
And
no
like,
awareness or education.
yeah,
behind it.
exactly. And I feel like, especially like I'm a person that's more like, I'm really good at English. I'm decent at math, but like I definitely struggle more at math. And I feel like people are always like, oh yeah, like SAT, like math questions, like that's where they get you. And I feel like my math class, like it's never even been like brought up.
Yeah. Interesting that you would say that. So, you know, I've been on the board long enough.
Which is why she's leaving, because she's had enough.
Pull that line tonight. I know. But I think you hit it on the head with COVID, because the testing platforms when everybody was remote, and you know, it was such a jumble that I think everybody said, okay, we're going to take a couple of years and not even look at what the SATs look like. And I think that kind of killed it, because before that we offered SAT prep courses
Yep, law
at our
schools
high
did.
school.
Yeah, and
some
law
of-
schools don't
It
anymore.
started out as a
Yeah,
class that you
Kaplan's
could
still a thing.
elect.
Right?
Yeah, you could take it as a class, or you could join it, you could pay a fee and have the teachers offer it after school for you. But that's, I mean, I think COVID blew all of that out of the water.
I think you're
but-
100% correct. I think it's one of those things that got lost in the
Yeah.
shuffle there.
But that the
'Cause-
fact that your
yeah.
teachers aren't saying, oh, this is the kind, you know,
Yeah.
and you've said it too, bring the kinds of questions that you're gonna see on it into the classroom, so
Yeah.
you can, it's not completely foreign to you.
Yeah,
So-
and I think that's the work, you know, Dr. Taylor's doing with the teachers, right? Is like, what are some of these not easy, but these kind of just simple things we can do? Like, hey, can we work in some SAT light questions in like a warm up in the beginning of class, something along those lines, right? Like, whatever the tricks are, that's something I would do as a math teacher. Like, hey, today's warm up, you know, is going to be SAT Thursday, right? Like, you're going to have an SAT question you're going to practice on. And some of your teachers might do that without saying it, but like informing you, like, hey, this is the warm up for the SAT, right? They might be doing something in the style of it, but you're not aware of it. And if we can make those two connections,
to bring it
like
out
that
to
would
the
be helpful,
forefront.
because it would take down some of your stress as you prepare for it. Yeah.
So I guess my last question for you, since you clearly have nothing to do every day.
I'm really not
The fact that you brought this the next meeting is very impressive to me, by the way. My question to you is, that was incredibly valuable information that we just gained.
I wrote
Can
it right
you,
down.
is it worth forming a student committee that can help with data and assessment, just feedback? Like, even if it's not, you know, even if it's periodically, that you just consult with them, because I think that maybe that's something we're missing, is that we're trying to solve a problem that they could probably help us figure out, since they're the ones that either are not motivated or not understanding.
Yep, and I love those kinds of things. I love working with kids, because that's the part that I miss, you know, the most being in this position. So, is working with students and their perspective is so important. They should be voices that, because as soon as you talk, I was like, that's the only thing I wrote down so far. Because that is the most valuable to us, because we can try to guess and think and whatever, and then whatever we throw out, it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
no. So that is a good suggestion.
I'm sure Danny and Nick are looking for more extracurriculars.
I know, right?
Yeah, I mean,
The first to sign up, I know.
I guess the last kind of related point that I wanted to bring up, maybe this isn't popular, I don't know, maybe it has nothing to do with it, maybe it shouldn't, but this brings me back to the question about midterms and finals. Because you talk about high stake testing, I have 2 high schoolers and I can tell you they don't know what that is.
I think it's a balance.
I will say the AP exam was a good reality check
Yeah.
for what a high stake test is, because that's not something, and again, I fully support project-based learning, I fully support all of that, but even if it was just midterms and the final was a project-based, something that is, I don't see the note cards anymore. I don't see, maybe that's just, again, my old age, right? But like flashcards and like color coordinated documents. Yeah, but it's not, I don't see it. It's just not part of.
Yeah, I'll let these guys jump in, but just to, yeah.
Personally, I really wish that we did have finals and midterms, because like I've gone to when we have like the seniors from last year like come back and they give like their advice. I'll say probably 90% of them were like, I was not prepared for midterms and finals, and like that now just like makes me like, obviously like there's some people that I'd be like, oh, I hate them, but like as someone who wants to be ready for college, like I wish we did have those. Like I
Not just college, for the rest of your life. If you
Yeah.
have no high pressure situations, you
Yeah.
will never be prepared for them.
So again, I think there's like a balance to that, right? Like I think one of the things that I'm glad went away at a lot of high schools is to have the unique schedule for that week, right? Like that's something that we did away with at Bo. We no longer had a midterm week and we no longer had a final week. It was built and cooked into the regular school day, right? And we did structure it where we made sure not everyone was giving like a midterm on the same exact day, right? There was a window of time, like if you're giving a midterm, this is the 2-week period you're gonna give it. And let us know when you're giving it so we can keep an eye on, we're not overloading the kids on any given minute. And we allowed some flexibility in terms of, and I'm not saying the way we did it was perfect, there was flaws in every system. Plenty of teachers gave traditional midterms finals like a high pressure test, and plenty of teachers did other stuff, and some changed it up, right? They may have done a midterm that was more of a traditional test, and then the final at the end of the year was more of a project oriented thing, or they did their high stakes tests like 3/4 of the way through the school year, right? Like where they really kind of put it on kids to like study for this thing. So I think finding the balance on that, I can say this now that I'm not in the high school realm, like the midterm week, I used to love it as a teacher because it was an easy week. Like we're gonna just give midterms; they're gonna be half days, right? Like, and it was like I just get my grading done in the afternoon, and it'd be a nice light week for me, right? And I don't know if that's the best resource of time. That's our most valuable asset is time with the students, right? So I don't know if that like half day schedule is the answer, but again, pendulum. We kind of swung way over to like, hey, we're gonna devalue the high stake like assessment kind of environment, or maybe we went too far. Can we come back in the middle where we realize that not every subject needs to hit you over the head with a final, right? A traditional like multi-question final, but like, is there some like in math? Like, I think it's good to give a test. Like, I will still advocate for a math test, right? Like, as a way to measure a kid's like knowledge on math stuff, right? So finding the right balance between all of that, I think, is important. Again, dual enrollment is something you're going to hear me talk about a lot in future years. Like, you have to match up your assessment with the college assessment. So it's a great way to kind of organically build in those high pressure like exams, because that's literally what they're giving in college is that assessment. So like, kids get used to that. So
even like reading, right? And the transferring the comprehension into those. What did it mean?
Right.
Right. Because you're going to see those on the SAT.
And also to like writing.
Yeah.
To
Writing.
like the application of writing.
Yep.
And so the Learning Outcomes Task Force is tackling assessment this year, and we're looking at depth of knowledge types of things, and how there is misperception in if you're doing a DO, like a depth of knowledge 3, so those are like high level questions. You get into application of knowledge when you get up to depth of knowledge 3 and 4. Sorry, I was edu speak for a minute. I'm like, wait, let me back that up. So that's when you really get high. So in a lot of people's minds, they're thinking that they have to have a project in order to get through. You can have an actual paper pencil classic test and hit a depth of knowledge level 4 application dependent upon how that question is structured and what students have to use for skills in order to answer that question. So it's not, oh, okay, I want to give a depth of knowledge 4. It has to be this big project that's multi-day, multi-dimensional, all those things. It's not that way. So just more training in what this looks like. And I've had conversations with people about wanting to have the midterm and the final back, but looking at what that looks like and not, again, going back to it's an event, stop everything, do this, because that's not organic. It's not how things roll. Not every subject needs that, so just looking at that, striking that balance and what it looks like in each subject. And those conversations are coming through the meetings that I'm having in content areas.
Keep this going, right?
Yeah.
Can I ask just one more thing, and not to add more work? It would be interesting to see how the SAT scores for the 12th grader compare to this.
Yeah. I started doing that too, but
You're feeding it to us at an appropriate pace. We appreciate it.
Manageable.
We're just not that smart, so-
doses. It's a scaffold.
Well, it's
for
a
you.
natural thing. You feed us it, right? And now we're asking for more.
Yeah.
Right?
Just a natural part of the
My board is getting very big.
That's why she moved offices.
That's right.
Maybe she should take your new office.
She can. It's great.
Well, I love my office now. It's amazing. Everybody should come look at it. It's a place to be, right? It's so happy, Brian. Come visit it.
It is.
Maybe
Very positive.
Maybe the FIC will figure out a way to give you your own portable.
Oh.
There we go.
Got AC.
All right, anything else for curriculum tonight? That was a very good update. Thank you very much.
Yep, no problem.
All right, shifting gears into the public minutes from February 19th. Everyone have a chance to review those minutes?
Yep.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Shoemaker. I will second. Additional discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Those minutes carry 5-0-0. All right, now we're into new business, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Shoemaker for a facilities update.
All right, so last time, to all of your displeasure, we were talking about the two options that we were looking at. So the big conversation around the redistribution is, in my opinion, you tell me if either of you feel differently, is largely around the committee feeling as though we aren't able to sufficiently answer what that looks like, right? And the fear that if we are not able to sufficiently answer what that looks like, that people will think that we haven't evaluated all the options, because there is a perception that that could be a very inexpensive option, aside from educational concerns and aside from impact on all 3 schools, right? So that piece of it. So it seems like that's the big drive on wanting more information on that. So that desire for more information has continued. And you don't know this yet, but Kyle Barker is going to come tomorrow. So where we left off last time was the superintendent said, I am willing to go out and get more information about what this looks like, because we just don't. It's a shift in how we do everything. So the superintendent was willing to do that, which I appreciated. My feeling was, as we've historically done, right, we have these wonderful superintendents that are willing to go do all this work, but at the end of the day, I don't expect you to be able to answer architectural questions. And so because Kyle Barker has looked at that option, I have asked him to come back and talk specifically about that, not anything else. We're not talking about other options. We're not pitching other options. And it's literally just, here are some of the considerations that you should be looking at when you think about implementing something like this, to help frame Mr. O'Connell's, viewpoint when he's going to ask questions of other superintendents who have done similar things. Did you have something to add? You looked like you did.
No, just you know a lot of it right there. Just the committee itself wants to give that reconfiguration a general look, right? And I think that's fair to do. And I don't mind doing work associated. I've already started some work associated with it because I'm curious about it. So we took some time over vacation. This sounds like a lot more work than it really was, but it's going to sound kind of impressive. So we looked at every single school in the state and broke down grade spans and saw the different grade spans that different schools are at. Created a list of every sort of configuration, school that's 1 through 4, 2 through 5, 9 through 12, and saw how many schools kind of fell in that. We got a list of the number of schools that are either 7 through 12, 6 through 12, and what does that look like, and starting to call some of those people, and I'm going to kind of visit some of those schools to do that. And also, because we get super focused on the 7 through 12 of it all, and I like the one that, again, that I've said over and over again that I'm just uneducated myself about is a 3-6, 4-6 model. What does that look like, right? So there are some schools that have that model. I didn't know if there was any, and there are. So there's, one that's 3 through 6 that is not going to be 3 through 6 in 2 years because they're doing some construction to stop that model. I felt like a bad son because it was actually a school my dad taught at, I didn't know that. So I never put 2 and 2 together. And then there's 4 through 6 schools in the state. So one of them, for example, is at Hopkinton. I'm good friends with the Hopkinton superintendent. Their high school is also 7. High school, middle school is also 7 through 8. Hey, so I'm going to go visit up there in a couple of weeks and just kind of see what that looks like and everything. So I say that because I don't mind. I think it's worthwhile educating us all on the pros and cons of these models. I'll tell you with some of the conversations, because I started calling some superintendents, particularly the ones I know, and most of them tend to be high school oriented people. So we're looking at the either 7-12, 6-12. Every single one of them said, you have to separate the kids. You got to figure out a way to separate them. Now, there might be common spaces you utilize, everyone's going to use the same cafeteria, but your core academics need to be separated. And almost everyone I spoke to said they have 2 different bell schedules. They have a bell schedule and a model for their 7, 8 kids, and they have a completely separate model for their 9-12 kids. And you have to figure out those dynamics if you're going to make it successful. And so, I know a few of these people I'm going to visit. Some of these I'm hoping to get down to Monadnock, which has the 3 through 6 school and then a 7 through 12 school. Sanborn, I know the principal there pretty well from I worked with her in the past. They just made the transition to 6 through 12 over the last 3 or 4 years. So we talked for a while today on the phone, and she just told me some challenges that they had and some successes that they've had and different things related to that. So I don't mind doing that work because I want everyone to feel confident in the final decision and direction we go. So to educate people about everything I think is important, right? This is education, and we got to educate people. So letting people be aware of everything with all these different options and decisions we have, I think is important. So
2 quick things. So Monadnock is a school, to my understanding, that does not separate the kids. And so one thing...
So I did speak to them today. They do separate for their core classes.
Okay.
I spoke to the superintendent.
But there's not a pure segregation.
It's not pure.
Because we talk about one of the considerations with this model is whether or not you do a true segregation. And so Peter, don't let me put words in your mouth, but Peter is a believer that we can still use the space without having to modify greatly, but that would require us, right? It would require us to not segregate them.
Are you talking about the high school or the middle school?
Well, when we bring 7th and 8th if we were to bring it to the high school, based off of what your sort of mindset is around what type of work we would do, we wouldn't be doing the extensive work that it would require to segregate them.
Not fully, no. I think I like the idea of the separate bell schedule. Then you could keep 7, 8 on a different, not necessarily on the block.
Yeah, I was surprised how common that is in these schools, but another superintendent I talked to was the Newmarket one today, and they're actually doing away with that, and they're going to go to a consistent bell schedule next year. They're all going to be on a block. But, I spoke to a different superintendent who said the worst thing for their middle school was to be on a block. So it's all over the place. It's the simplest things here.
So my point in that is hearing just that feedback is the first that I've heard of the responses that he's gotten. And so that may really, that type of feedback is super useful to this committee because it helps us define if we are truly, if we are looking at that option. It sounds like we may not be looking at it. We may be requiring a segregated model if that were the case, which is a whole different path than the path of not segregating, right? And so having Kyle tomorrow is helpful because he can help us understand if you were to segregate versus not segregate, what are the different types of physical considerations you have to make, not educational considerations. So that's that. Appreciate that update.
Anything else to highlight from FIC?
We started talking about the updating the bylaws, but we're more focused on this right now.
Okay.
And that's that.
Actually, there was some discussion that maybe the bylaw should come down from the school board, right?
Right.
Is there any action?
Not at this current
Not
moment in
yet.
time. We'll bring you the bylaws as we have them, and then we can, as a board.
Okay. We'll be on the lookout. And your next meeting's tomorrow.
Yes, we are now on a schedule where we have it the same week as school board, so I'm never home.
Fantastic.
All right, well, thank you for the update. Next up is policy. We have nothing for first read, and we have a few policies for second read. Any questions on the policies that were presented at our last meeting for second read tonight? Are there any other updates?
No
on
other
your side?
updates? No, no.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve policy ACACR, policy ACAC, policy ACN, and policy J, I always get this one, JJIC.
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Ms. Ames. Additional discussion on those four policies. All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Those carry 5-0-0. All right, next up on the agenda is old business. There's none listed at this time. And then shifting into school board comments.
I just want to say I came in late, so I didn't get to. I don't know if you all told Tina how much you like her, but I just want to say, I've really appreciated working alongside you. I came into this as a member, not even a member of the FIC, just as a random community member who spoke up once at an information session, and here I am now. But you've given me a lot of knowledge about what I'm looking at because I'm not an educator. So I've really appreciated it, and I appreciate all you've done.
My pleasure.
If you haven't read the annual report, do that.
Okay, I shall.
You should.
All right.
All right?
Thank you.
You got a shout out at.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, anything else for school board comments? All right, moving into manifest. We have the manifest from February 19th, 2025. We have a payroll manifest with winter coaches for $395,619.63. Let me just clarify that. Payroll with winter coaches included their pay for that amount. We have voluntary 403B deductions for $8,252.10, as well as our accounts payable manifest that was signed on February 19th for $300,703.18. And with that, that concludes our public session tonight. The board is moving into non-public this evening.
Community input.
Oh, sorry. Second round of community input. Almost.
I'll be sure. So Corey Solzin, this time I'm going to wear my 5th grade math cap. So as we look at data diving, which I'm a math person, it's my jam. I want you to remember that we have a para shortage. This is the 3rd year of a severe para shortage, but it's been building. So I want to say that one of my classes, 15 kids out of 23 need extra love every single day. So that means that there are about 8 kids that don't need that. So my kids that need that regular targeted instruction versus that and then tier 2 and then even tier 3, they're not getting what they need every day. So as we look at all this data and see why are kids struggling as they get to high school and not being able to do math, it's because they're not getting what they want or they need since 1st grade, since the middle school. And I mean, every time we have a shortage in one para, that impacts like 10, 20 kids. That's a huge impact. And then you think about how many pairs each year and then the amount of years, that compounds greatly. So as you look at data, I would like you to really take into consideration the cohorts. How many 504s and IPs are at each cohort? Have they had the right support every single year? If the answer is no, then you can't really judge and use that data. It's junk. When you look at the teachers, we have some amazing teachers, but they're inappropriately staffed to be able to give the level of need to every student every day. It's not because they don't want to. It's because they literally don't have enough time in any day to meet what they need and then hit their professional responsibilities, meet with emails, and then prep amazing lessons. And right, thinking about cross-curricular has been huge, right? How do you add that in when you're really struggling with the base content? So it's important. I know that you do a lot of work to kind of look at all the sides, but that part wasn't said, and I want to make sure that as we continue to look at data, we have to remember that that has an impact every single day, and a lot of classes don't get what they need every single day, but we do the best that we can every single day, just like you do as well. So thank you for your time, and Tina, again, thank you for your service.
That's a great point. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Janine Hanktel, 43 Tanager Way, parent hat mostly. And I ditto great points, but also I wanted to talk about the PSAT, SAT conversation that had happened. And you're talking about how to get kids invested and make this meaningful so we can get some good meaningful data and how can they get them engaged. And I'm over there going, ask the students, ask the students, ask the students. And you did, and we got some great feedback from one student. You have your most valuable resource is your students for figuring that out. And Matt, you mentioned that as well. I just wanted to reiterate that as an example. I don't want to embarrass her, but when my daughter took the SATs and I asked her about that experience, she's a fantastic math student and she did very well in the SATs, but her math was not quite as high as she had hoped before going into that test. And so we talked about that and we dug into that a little bit. She had some very specific feedback that was really helpful to me even as a first grade teacher, looking forward to the kids who are headed that way. She had some very specific feedback about the way questions are formed and set up on the SAT versus what she's doing in class, and the way it's worked through and discussed and words used in class versus how it was on the SAT. I asked her for specifics on that, and she was very knowledgeable. And I was like, this is gold. This is a wealth of information, and that's what you need to tap into if you want to figure out how to get that good data. So,
Absolutely. Thank you, Janine.
Yep.
Excellent. Any other public input this evening? We're good? All right. So with that, we'll close community input and now move into non-public session. So again, the board does have non-public business this evening under RSA 91A and C. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to move into non-public.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Shoemaker.
Second.
Second by Ms. Ames as well as Mr. Plansky. And I'll entertain a motion. I'll call a vote. All those in favor?
Please say aye.
I'm off my game today.
Tell the sun.
You're good. We got it.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. All right, we're now in non-public.